Hi, Lauren.
Hi Jeff, how are you?
All right. How are you doing? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I'm doing okay. I'm like glad to be home and like settled back after the holidays and everything. It was like a lot of just energy and time. I was feeling a little tired this week.
Wow, I'd love to hear about all of that. I mean, would you say that it was good? It was too much, you said, or was it how did it feel?
Yeah, I also went and visited my family, right? And I was there for I think just like 4 days, which usually is good. I don't feel like we've talked much about my family, to be honest, like in these sessions, but I like learned pretty early on after I left home when I was 18 that like going back home for like more than a week is like too much for me. So usually like 3 or 4 days is like a sweet spot. But so this time it was good. I like stayed with my parents and all my like aunts and uncles are in the same town. I would say like the first couple of days were good. Like Thanksgiving was really nice, like reconnected with everyone. Um, but unfortunately, like me and my parents got into like a really big argument
Oh,
on the last day as I was leaving, and I think that like really soured the experience. And I don't know, I just don't think that like we're like really on the same page, or they're super supportive right now with me. So I think that yeah, that kind of sucked, to be honest.
well, I'd like to explore that a little bit more because that sounds like that's really on your mind of something
Yeah.
that happened recently. Um, let's I'd like to follow up first on some of the homework that we
Yeah.
talked about from last week, and that was doing a credit list.
Mm.
That was part of our action plan,
Mhm.
was to essentially, do at least, I think we decided on two a day, two things to write down each day, or
I think
maybe
you're right.
I can't remember now. I should
Mm.
know. I should have this written down, shouldn't
I
I?
don't remember. It's
Um,
okay.
so we can just say one thing per day.
Okay.
Was that something that you did work on?
So I did work on it. I did not do it the day that I had the fight with my parents, and then the day after when I traveled back. Like I didn't do it those days. So I started it and then I stopped. And then I came back to it. Coming back to it was kind of hard. But I still have a couple in there.
That's completely understandable. It's a common thing, I think, for people when you're in moments of stress or
Mm.
taken out of your routine or whatever. The fact that you are doing this during Thanksgiving when you're not in your regular routine is good. It's great. It's a good sign. It's not ideal for developing routines. So I'm impressed that you managed to do what you did.
Thanks. I felt the same
Oh, good.
way.
Okay. So why don't we go over a few of them if you don't mind?
Mhm.
What did you come up with?
Yeah, so I will say that I've never done this before. And I could tell that I kind of like struggled at first, like in the first couple days, kind of just felt like I was writing a to-do list, but like in the accomplishment form. So I wanted to basically like write down the things that I got done, which like didn't make me feel very good. So the first day I just ended up writing like I'm writing this credit list, which like made me feel silly, but I was also like, at least I'm putting something down and it's not like I sent 16 emails today, So that was step one. Um, but I think as I got like a little bit more into it and I actually showed it to one of my friends because I was kind of struggling, I got a better sense of like how I wanted to think about myself putting things in there. And so, I had this big fight with my parents on Sunday, and then on Monday, I like didn't write anything. And then on Tuesday, I wrote like, I like spoke my truth to my parents. And I think that felt like a very like serious form of credit in a way that wasn't just about um like making tasks or like accounting for things, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a huge thing to give credit for, because that is,
Mhm.
it sounds like maybe it was a difficult conversation to have.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it was super challenging. I don't know, should I talk more about it now, or do you wanna keep focusing on the
Yeah,
credit
I mean,
list?
this if this is what's on your mind, like I'd
Mhm.
love to hear kind of what happened and what was going through your mind as this unfolded.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I know like in our sessions, we've talked a lot about like my difficulties at work and like work-life balance and burnout and being overwhelmed. And, I feel like it came into therapy talking a lot about how much of that came out of my last job and being laid off and all these things. But I think going home like really reminded me of like just how intense my parents are and have been, and like how over involved they can be. And so they've always just like had really, really high expectations for me. Like when I was in high school, like very intense, like, you have to get straight A's, you have to do all these things, like you have to go to a good college. And like even to the point when I was like graduating college, like they like wanted to know what jobs I was applying for and like the salary and all these things. And so when I was there this past week, I brought up what I talked about with you, that like there are these possible layoffs. I probably won't be affected, but that like they're coming up. And the conversation just devolved into this whole thing that they were like, why aren't you trying harder? Like, why are you still on the chopping block? Like, shouldn't you be further in your career now? Like, they don't think that I make enough money. They don't like my apartment. Like, they think that like they just like don't think that I'm meeting their expectations. And I kind of just like blew up at them. I don't even think I was coherent necessarily, but I was just so mad. That I was like, why do you even care about this? And that like it really, I think, struck a chord because I've been doing so much work here, like with you, to try to like balance myself a little bit and not be so work obsessed. And I just felt completely flooded with all of those insecurities again. So I do think that's why my credit list, like the last couple days, were so much about like that conflict, trying to be proud of myself for like speaking up, speaking back, like returning home and like doing the things that I wanted to do for myself. Like one day, like made a pie, and instead of like working late at night, and so trying to hold on to those things. But yeah, it was very stupid.
Well, I mean, why do you use the word stupid? Just because you felt like it was a an argument that shouldn't have happened, or
Hmm. I feel like stupid because I just like a part of me is like I don't feel like it's any of their business. Like I'm almost 30 years old and I just don't understand like why do they even care like right now? Like I feel like I should be allowed to be my own person. But I also feel like I'm having a lot of like feelings come up about like I don't think that any of it was fair, like even before I was 30. Like why do I need to like be an adult to feel like this is like unreasonable behavior? So I'm feeling some like self-criticism around that, I think, but I think just stupid because I'm like this is unnecessary and like I think it's harmful for everybody.
how did you approach them then when you spoke to them? You said you spoke your truth then the next day.
Yeah, I I don't know if I did it the best way. It's like kind of what I meant by incoherent, but yeah, they just were like really like going on and on and on and on about all of their expectations, like I was saying, of just like salary and promotion and all this stuff. And I kind of just tried to tell them off. And like, I think I said to them what I haven't even like said to myself, which is that like, I'm not trying to like become a CEO. Like, I don't need to make like six figures and like have the most amazing investments or whatever. Like, I really was like, no, like I'm happy where I am. I think that I like do well. I enjoy my life. Like I want to like have better relationships, build a more balanced lifestyle, like contribute to the world, but like not be just this total like corporate person. And just kind of like spewed out of me. And I didn't even really see it coming, to be honest. I think it totally shocked them.
And what was their response?
Yeah, it was super negative. They just really were like, "You don't know what you're talking about." Like, "You'll see it our way eventually," which is what they're always saying. They're always saying, like, "You'll come around," and I feel like in the past, like when I was younger and more financially tied to them, like I kind of had to come back around because like I moved home after college and I felt like really under their thumbs. But now I'm kind of like I don't really see why I need to come back around or why I would. So,
Well, this may sound strange for me to say it, but I think that this argument that you had is a huge example of progress that you've made, and being
hmm,
self-aware of some of the things that we've talked about. And we've talked in the past about automatic thoughts, and
hmm,
some of your automatic thoughts that you've described were feeling like you were never good enough at work, or never,
hmm,
like that your colleagues were not going to think that you were a valuable member of the team.
hmm,
And you struggled often to, you know, to talk about that with people when when your
hmm,
boss was giving you work, struggled to set those boundaries. So the fact that you set them with your parents, it doesn't feel good to have an argument, obviously.
hmm,
There are constructive arguments, and it sounds like this was a constructive argument. Maybe they don't see it that way, but I
hmm,
certainly do, seeing when the way it dovetails with the growth that you've had.
hmm.
You see it that way?
I feel like that's like really what I'm struggling with right now. Like, so part of me, like, coming into the session, I like thought that you might say that. Like, I was like, oh, this is like kind of funny that like we've talked so much about my like work problems and my sense of like my basically like my self-worth problems, I guess. And I was like, oh, like this is so like obviously underneath all of it. And I like a part of me is really proud that I like stuck up to them in that way. But I think I'm partially still just like reeling from the conversation, but I also think that I am like really criticizing myself for like how I had the conversation. Like I really don't like that I blew up, and I do think that I was like kind of mean-spirited and cold and like it didn't need to be said that way. And so I think I'm like really struggling to like hold on to the fact that like the content was super important. Like the delivery maybe could have been better, but I'm like afraid that I've made things like a lot worse than I needed to. So I do feel like confused about it, I think.
Okay. Um, I think this leads nicely into kind of the next phase of today's today's session, which is I'd love to try a role play with you. And it sounds like I mean, as difficult as it sounds like another conversation may need to happen between you and your parents to
Mm,
sort of, I you said as you said, you expressed the things that you wanted to express. Um, but that you felt like you didn't express them the way that you wanted to.
right.
I think what I'd like to do is, whether you have another conversation with your parents or not, why don't we try a little role play where I'm your parents,
Hmm.
you, and you have the same conversation, but in a way that you wish you had. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think like I can tell as you're bringing it up, I'm having a gut reaction of like I never want to talk to them again. But I
Yeah.
think that like talking to you, it feels like much more manageable. It still feels a little like uncomfortable, but I think it's a good idea ultimately.
Okay. And you know what? I said earlier, you need to have another conversation with your parents. That ignore that. What we're doing here is just kind of figuring out what thoughts are going through your head as you're
Hmm.
having these interactions, and whether they're accurate, whether they're inaccurate.
Mm,
Um, and the idea of just doing it the way that you wish you could, I think can
mm,
be helpful whether you have the conversation with them or not. So
mhm, mhm.
we'll put that aside. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so let's try it. Are you ready?
Mhm, mhm.
So you, I guess we set the scene. You're coming to me. Where was this taking place? What was it like at
Oh,
your parents' house or
yeah, it was, like, in the kitchen. That's where we always, like, hang out.
okay. So I am your mom and your dad right now, and
Okay. Mhm.
you're you. Oh, how's it going at work? What's going on?
It's going okay. I think, like, I'm doing pretty well. I like the company, right? Like, I've been there now for a couple of months, and
Are you
I was
moving up
like,
the ranks? Are you, getting promotions and stuff?
"Oh, well, there's actually been talk of, like, possible layoffs, so I don't really think I'll be promoted anytime soon. I think it's more about, like, kind of staying where I am and just, like, getting comfortable with my team."
But why would you be laid off?
I don't think that I'm gonna be laid off. Like, I think I talked about this with my boss actually, so I guess it's a good question. But it seems like there will be some layoffs just because like the industry is not doing so well right now. But I don't think I'll be laid off. It's more about some like upper management people.
Lauren, you don't know how these things work. You need to work harder to make sure you don't get laid off. Give them a reason to keep you on at the company. Don't be passive about it.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you saying that. Like, I think that you've always really encouraged me to like try my best and do the best I can. But I think I'm in a good spot right now. And something I've really been trying to work on is having better balance actually, and not being too work obsessed and trying to make sure that like the different parts of my life all are like going pretty well. So I think I've done a good job. I don't think that I'm gonna be fired, but I'm not trying to overdo it, I guess, in
No,
that area.
people who talk about work-life balance have no idea how the real world works. So spare me with some of that. You think you need to balance, you need to work harder. You need to put in the hours. Otherwise, you're going to be among the people who are laid off.
Mm,
So, yeah, I want you to be happy. We want you to be happy. You're our child, but we don't want you to get laid off knowing what you're capable of. And
mm,
don't sell yourself short. Work your ass off. That's the only way to make yourself indispensable at this position.
hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely hear where you're coming from, and I think that like I know that you just want me to be happy and I like really, I appreciate that so much. I do think though that like work-life balance is really important and that there's like been a lot of talk about it. I think in a lot of the like in my own company, across like different workplaces in the US, like I think it's a pretty big conversation right now. I'm really thankful for it. I think it's actually making me like do better work and like feel more confident in what I do. So, yeah, no, I'm definitely not trying to say that I'm like putting myself in a risky situation. Like I know that you both especially are nervous because I got laid off in the past and I don't plan on slacking by any means, but
Well,
yeah,
you
I
better
think it's
not.
important for
After
me
all
to
the
know my
money
own
we
work
put into your
goals.
college education, you better not be
Mhm.
slacking.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a
again, like
lot invested in you.
yeah, I really appreciate it, but I think that like, it's time for me to chart my own way and that, we've paid off my student loans and I like respect all that you've given me and now I like need to chart my path for myself and my boss has been really supportive of that. My team has been very supportive. And so, I really appreciate your support too and that's important to me and I want you to know that.
Well, we want to support you. We would just want to know that you've got your head screwed on straight. And this conversation is making us a little bit worried about whether you do.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely understand that you feel like nervous or worried. And, if you want, like, we can check in about this again too. And I can definitely assure you that, like, if anything seems like it's going really, really wrong or that, like, something bad is going to happen, like, I'll let you know and I'll do what I can to, like, make sure that I'm in a good place. But I also need you to trust me that when I say that things are okay and that I'm doing well, that they are, even if it doesn't look like what you want it to look like.
Well, if you give us a reason to trust you, we will trust you.
Yeah, I think that I have so far. I think that by like being in this new company, getting myself in a good team, like staying committed to what I do, I think that you can. Like I'm working on trusting myself, and I feel like that's going pretty well. And I feel like my life is becoming what I want it to become. And I can like see a long-term path that's both like successful and secure and also makes me happy. And, I think that for me right now, like that's the most important thing.
Well, that feels good to hear as parents that you're we want you to be happy. We don't want you to sell yourself short. So if this work-life balance that you're talking about is making you happier and you're still doing the work that you think you can do, then we're all for it.
That's great. Yeah, no, that really, it really does mean so much to me. Like I've always really looked up to you both. I think that like you really have encouraged me so much and motivated me so much, and you financially supported me, and like all of that is so meaningful. And I want to make you proud, and I also want to be proud of myself. And so, I'm happy to talk about this again and like keep you in the loop, but I think that's where it's at for right now.
Okay. Well, thank you for letting us know. We appreciate it.
Mhm.
And scene. Nice work.
Thank you. Sorry I smiled a little bit in the middle. You reminded me so much of my dad that I got like kind of uncomfortable, but
Yeah,
I followed
you do.
generally.
So tell me something. And I the way that you handled it was very graceful and did it and it felt true to you. How did it feel from your end? Was what were the thoughts that you were going through your head similar to what you ended up saying, or were you softening yourself? Like how did it play out for you?
It felt a lot easier talking to you than actually talking to my parents. I can tell the like you told me to like check in about my body and things. I can tell like my palms are sweaty, like my heart was definitely beating a little bit. I don't feel like the thoughts in my head matched what came out of my mouth. I think that like the things that came out of my mouth, like I know they're the things that I want to say, and that like I've like kind of like written them down in like journals and stuff because I feel like it's what I'm working towards. But internally, like especially when you said those things about like we paid for your college, or like we know better than you, or just like some of the stuff where like I don't know if it's a generational difference or what, but like sometimes I just feel like there's this gulf in between like how my parents think about work and really just like the reality of work today. And sometimes it feels like it's my job to like educate them on those things. Then I don't know if that's like useful and I get confused about it. And so I know I'm just experiencing like a lot of internal self-doubt. And that like I do think that's why in the moment, like when I was actually in the fight, I just blew up and just like basically said that they were bad parents and that they should have treated me better. And that's not what I said right now. So
That the way that you felt
yeah.
honestly?
I think it was like a little bit too extreme, probably. Like, I really do. And like the way that I try to talk with you now, like, I do appreciate them so much. Like, they really did inspire me. Like, I think they both had very full careers and like tried to be dedicated parents, and that's awesome. And I do think that like they were pretty seriously flawed in some ways. And like if I didn't like meet their goals, or I got a D on a test one time in high school, and it was like because I had like a swim meet and a project and like something else. And so I was like having a really tough time, and I like almost failed this test. And they just like sat me down and screamed at me for like an hour. And I think I'm just like, that is bad parenting. Like I just don't think that's how you talk to a 15-year-old. And so I think the like that gap in between like they have loved me and shown me so much love, and also in moments have been so mean that it just like makes my head spin. And then in these moments I like can't even keep track of like what's real.
Well, thank you for being vulnerable with that. this sounds like difficult stuff, and it's, I hesitated to bring up your parents in past sessions because you hadn't, frankly. But
Hmm.
it seems like a little bit of a, I don't know if breakthrough is the right word, but it
Hmm.
seems telling that you had this conversation with your parents and sort of made the connection between the way that they've treated you and the way that you have felt at work. Um,
Mhm.
when you had not the conversation with me, but the blow up conversation,
Hmm.
did you feel um uh you know how we talked about automatic thoughts before?
Mhm.
Just kind of like, were there automatic thoughts that were happening that made you sort of, say these things that you feel like were over the top? I think what did you say, that they were hurtful or?
I think, like, over the top. I don't remember exactly what I said either, but I know what you mean. Yeah, like, I mean, I think just, like, the big automatic thought that came up, like, over and over again was just, like, "I'm dumb." Like, "I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm stupid. I have, like, no idea what's going on." That, like, I can't even, like, figure out how to know what's going on, like, just completely incompetent, I think, and I feels like that's what I feel like is so hard in talking with them, and also, like, got under my skin just now when, like, you and I did the role play is that they're like, "You just don't know," and I feel like that's such a, like, hot point for me to feel like, yeah, I just have no idea, and I should just, like, lay at their feet and let them tell me what to do.
So you said that the words that you spoke to me weren't necessarily the words that were in your head, but the words
Mm.
that you spoke to them, you said may have been a little over the top. Can you
Mhm.
think of some middle ground between there? Because I applaud the assertiveness that
Mm.
you've shown, because that has been one of the things that we've worked on in the past, is
Yeah.
standing up for yourself, and you did, and that's wonderful. But it sounds like maybe you regret a little bit that you didn't do it in the way that you wish you had. Is there
Yeah.
some middle ground that we can find where you can speak your truth and say what you're feeling without being hurtful about it?
Yeah, I mean, I
The
think
hurtful is beside the
uh-huh,
point. I mean,
huh,
maybe, sometimes parents need to hear things that might be painful, but
yeah.
want to keep you want to feel good about the way that you responded to them, you know?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right that, like, I'm regretting it a lot right now, and I mean, I do think that, like, how we just did it in the role play, like, did align better with what I want, that I feel like it's important for them and for me to, like, remind everybody involved that, like, they did a lot of things right, like, they did do a lot of good things, and that, like, kind of giving that validation or, like, reassurance feels important, especially since I've never really had these conversations with them, and that's what freaks me out so much about the past week, 'cause I think I was just so binary and, like, "You're horrible now, and maybe I'll just slam you," but I think that the middle ground to me feels like kind of being more realistic about, like, they've caused me a lot of pain, and also that, like, I have learned so much from them, trying to, like, balance it when I talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's what you showed was a different kind of assertiveness in the way that you talk to me. Assertive doesn't have to mean yelling and screaming your truth. It can just mean
Mhm.
saying what you feel, and
Yeah.
you didn't back down. Um, so it sounds like that's something to strive for you.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
do you so I'm curious, this is a kind of a central point of the conversation today, but like, do you feel like your parents heard you and that something will change? Or is that beside the point for why you had the conversation?
Oh, I don't think they heard me because at the end, they basically just screamed, "Get out of our house," and I left, and I haven't talked to them since, so I don't really know if much well, I feel like probably their expectation is for me to come back and apologize, and to be honest, I do kinda wanna apologize, just not to the level that I imagine that they want me to. I forget the other part of the question, but
I made it needlessly complicated. Th well, let's talk about this need to apologize. Why do you think
Hmm.
you need to apologize?
Yeah, I do feel bad for being so aggressive assertive. I do think it was a little bit out of line, and I think I'm also struggling, like, we've talked about how in my other kind of like conflict situations that I struggle to stand up for myself, and I think I like swallow a lot of my words, like with my boss and stuff. And I think in this case, I kind of like threw up all of the words, and I do want to like take accountability for that and be like, I'm sorry for taking out all of my feelings on you. But I don't want to apologize for like my values and my lifestyle.
Yeah. Do you think you'd like to try another role play of how that conversation might go if you did choose to apologize without giving away your values?
I think I could try it. I don't
Okay.
really know what I would say. This one feels a little harder, but I think I could try it.
I'm sure it's a difficult conversation, but, um, I'll start. We were extremely hurt by what you said to us the other day.
Mm.
The way that you treated us made us feel unloved.
Hmm.
We did not appreciate that at all.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely I hear you, and I have a couple of things to say that, one, I really do want to take out accountability and say that I'm truly sorry that I feel like, last Sunday I really blew up at you, and that it was like coming from some serious like hurt that I felt from the both of you, but also I think just from me holding things in and not really taking care of myself in the right way. And so I really do want to say that I'm sorry, for blowing up. And I do think that I also want an apology from both of you. Around some of the content that I said, not necessarily the delivery, but yeah, I don't want that to overshadow the fact that, like, I am truly sorry.
Well, we appreciate your apology, and it takes a big person to admit they're wrong, but we
Mm.
don't think we have anything really to apologize for.
Hmm. I guess, like, why do you say that?
You came into our house and you started screaming at us after we've done nothing but be supportive of you. We were just concerned about you getting laid off, which was what you brought up, and we don't think we did anything wrong. We would do it again.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I think that, like, I can respect that you have your own opinion, and also, like, we do have different perspectives on the situation. Like, yeah, I brought up the layoffs as a possible thing, and that, I was, like, managing my work life in the way that I wanted to, but I did feel pretty disrespected by the both of you in the conversation, and that I feel like you had a very firm idea about what my life and work life needs to look like, and that I don't appreciate, and I do think I deserve an apology about those things, and that's like pretty important since that's like how I'm moving forward in my life right now.
Well, I mean, we can apologize if it'll make you feel better, I suppose.
No, like, I don't want just a false apology. I don't think that's gonna do much for us.
We regret that it happened.
I also regret that it happened. Like, I think conflict is hard, and that, it's not fun to be in conflict, but the things I was saying to you like feel really important to me, and I don't feel like we're on the same page about it, and that you have still pretty strong expectations of how you want me to do things. And I'm concerned that if we can't get on the same or at least similar page, that we're just going to have more conflicts about this. And that's why I want the apology, and I also want to make sure that we're able to move forward well together.
Well, we appreciate the maturity with which you're handling this, and this is gonna you have to understand it is going to take us a little bit of time to get used to this. We're sorry that we did not that we weren't good parents to you, if that's what you're saying. We're sorry about that. We think we were good parents, but we are sorry. We did not want to cause some sort of rift in the family.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I think, it's gonna take me time too. I think like to be able to talk with you in a way so I don't blow up. Like I don't want to blow up at you. And I do truly feel so badly about that. And yeah, I think that like it's gonna take us all time. Like these are conversations that we haven't really had. But I do just want to clarify, like, I don't think that you were just like overwhelmingly terrible parents. Like, I know I said a lot of really mean things last week about you being awful and just like totally terrible. And, I don't believe that. And I know that's not true. Like, I think that there are things that you could have done better. And I also think that there are a lot of things that you did really, really well. And so I think I want to make sure that like the way that I talk with you moving forward reflects that. That like there are a couple things that I think we could work on together and that I also like really do love you both.
I think that's a perfect spot to end that.
Mm.
That
Hmm.
I think that was you stated it beautifully. You didn't you didn't give in when they refused to really offer sincere apology. You
Hmm.
said your piece and you kept your cool. How did you feel about it?
That yeah, I felt that was interesting. That was a lot easier actually than the other conversation. I think I can tell like this is just what I want so badly is to like reach a resolution with them and that like ultimately like I want us to be on the same page and I think that like it could be good for all of us. So the idea of reaching the point where I could have a like kind of self-respecting apology, I guess, like that I think really is like, inspiring for me ultimately. And it just also feels very hard in reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, we're sort of entering the end of our session here. Um, before we finish, I'd like to kind of summarize kind of what we've been
Mhm.
talking about. And a lot of it has been had to do with assertiveness,
Mhm.
essentially,
Mhm.
and figuring out ways to be assertive that are also acceptable, that make you feel good about yourself because you want to be able to stand up to people that you feel need to be stood up to
Mhm.
without losing your soul, maybe too
Mhm.
intense of a word, but without losing who you are and without
Mhm.
shortchanging your own feelings. And the role playing that we did, I think, shows that you have been really thoughtful about ways of doing that, alternate ways. And I'll say it again, I think it's good that you confronted your parents regardless of the outcome. I know
Mhm.
it may not feel that way right now, uh, but if you're going to be making a credit list, which that's going to be your continuing homework for next week,
Okay.
I
Mhm.
give you the ultimate credit for not just having that conversation with them, but for saying what you felt, even if it felt like it came out wrong.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's how do you feel about the way this session went, and how did you feel about the role play in general?
I thought this was great. I think, I haven't really ever done a role play before except for like in silly HR trainings where they like
Yeah.
act like someone's trying to scam you, like a package person. So I was a little bit like, huh, I wonder how this will go at first, but I actually think it really helped me just like feel grounded in the things that I'm trying to say. And that was a really good feeling.
Yeah. Well, that's terrific. That's really good news. for the homework for our next session, would you, it seems like the credit list felt like a productive thing to do.
Mm,
Do
yeah.
you feel, I mean, I'd like to be collaborative with you about this. Do you feel like it's something to continue with? Because I don't want to give you homework if you think that it's not going to help, you know?
Actually, I'd really like to keep doing it because, and I appreciated that you said this, that it's like it was kind of hard to do with like the holidays and stuff, like not being in my regular routine. So I'd actually be pretty curious to try to do it again in like a more normal week, you know?
Yeah. You could experience very different responses,
Hmm.
giving yourself credit for, different things, maybe more intense or less intense, but
Mm,
that's more of your real life rather than the experiences at Thanksgiving.
yeah, yeah.
Give your give yourself the grace of, like you said earlier that you felt bad about the way that this conversation happened with your parents, and
Mm,
I think beating yourself up about it is not, it's not particularly, it's not going to help you in the long run.
mm, yeah.
So give yourself a little bit of credit there that you did it.
Okay. I'll work on it. And we'll talk about that next time too.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have anything else that you'd like to talk about before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. I think this was a really good session. I think I'll probably like relax a little bit now, like maybe watch a little TV. That's
Yeah.
kind of intense.
I
But
really I put you
otherwise,
through the ringer there. Sorry about that.
yeah. No, it's okay. It was good. It was good. And definitely I'm a little tired now. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Lauren, and I will see you next week.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.